Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. My name is Rosemary Nixon and I'm your MC for today. I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri and the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation and pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all Indigenous Australians present today. Welcome to our hybrid meeting, to those online and those in the room. Thanks today will be given by past President Peter Dakin, followed by the loyal toast presented by President Philip Cornish. Please ensure your glass is charged.
Well, good afternoon, Rotarians and guests present today and online for such a special day in our calendar year. When reading the distinguished service of our awardee, Andrew Mahar, including his wonderful work in Timor-Leste, I was prompted to reflect on my presidential year in 2000-2001 and our initial involvement supporting the people of East Timor. We were approached by the Rotary Club of Doncaster to assist them in raising funds for a roofing machine project following the destruction of over 75% of the buildings in East Timor by the Indonesians. Our club rallied and 12 members formed the East Timor subcommittee, and partnering with the Rotary Club of Albert Park, we raised $25,000 at a gala breakfast. This was the start of an amazing success story with the formation of the East Timor roofing project, and after 18 years the transfer of ownership to the Don Bosco Order of Salesians in Macau as a highly successful and ongoing business. The commitment of members such as Bob Glindemann, Phil Endersby, Peter Manger, Jeremy Oach, Neville Barwick and others has been truly outstanding. Other projects we initiated included building the East Timor Embassy in Canberra and the Donations in Kind store championed by Bob Glindemann for so many years. Rotary can be proud of its ongoing commitment to international humanitarian projects. Thank you, and over to you, President.
Thank you. Rotarians and guests, if you could be upstanding. A toast to Australia and Rotary International. Thank you. Please be seated. We'll be breaking for lunch and we'll reconvene at 1:15. For those online, please take up the offer of the Zoom breakout rooms, which will open shortly. Thank you. Yeah, no, that was an excellent bell ring. Members, visitors and guests, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to our 15th meeting of this Rotary year and our 5,099th club meeting in our 105-year history. It's great to see you all here on today, including those attending online, so I hope you can see the hat. Our guest speaker today is Andrew Mahar, AM, social entrepreneur. Andrew will be presented with our 61st Vocational Service Award and is accompanied by his wife Kathy and children Alice, Jessica and Jacob. Please join me in acknowledging and making Andrew and his family welcome. Joining us today we have past award recipients, including last year's recipient, Simone Carson, AM co-founder and deputy board chair, Second Bite, is here. Yes, so please stand. Robert Predolan, public health advocate, academic, Dr. Marg Leggett, AM mental health expert and a past club member. Mordy Palmer, AO, visual art expert. Bruce Parker, OAM Managing Director of HM Gem Engines. And current member not here. Okay, we have apologies and regrets from past recipients: Deborah Cheetham, Professor Gwyn Davis, Stephanie Alexander, Dr. Sandro De Mayo, Professor Sharon Lewin, and John Neal is actually unable to attend as well. Please thank you to all of our past recipients for joining us today. We have other visiting Rotarians, visitors and guests of members. I invite you and your host to stand when your name is announced and remain standing to enable the club to welcome you in a collective manner. I promise that you will all be recognised in that applause. So, if I turn to my next page, we have Table David Horgan, who is going to be inducted in December. So welcome, David. Lovely to see you here. Yes, special welcome. Dave Chonham with Desta Debying Fu. Mark Allen, who I saw. Thank you, Mark. Valentine Chi, who helped out in the Melbourne Marathon on Sunday, is here with Minnie Watts, a guest. Nice to see you again, Valentine. Chrysanthi Prasakis, a guest of Sue McDonald, you could stand, and Adam Murray, a guest of Will Abdo. If we could all give them a round of applause, that would be terrific. So a couple of things. Why am I wearing the hat? Two things. We have the Melbourne Cup Carnival special lunch coming up, and everyone has always said whenever I wear this it reminds them of a bookie. I only ran a book once and managed to lose money, so I won't be doing that again. But it was only $1, but I had the bet fairly well spread. And the other thing, of course, it is Mental Health Month this month, and we've often done a colourful hat day. But it's good to be reminded that even though mental health is more aware in people's minds, to the point that my Kit Kat I bought yesterday had "Are you okay?" on it, and I was after I finished my Kit Kat, it's still important to remember that mental health is a blight on our community, and statistically there would be people in our club who are probably suffering at some stage at the moment, so it's good to remember it. And, all right, Smith Family Fundraising, Team Rotary, bike riders are ready to ride on the Sunday the 26th. Pledges from members have reached about halfway our 4,000 targets. These donations not only spur on our 6 riders, but go towards scholarships for kids from disadvantaged families' children, and in the Smith Family Learning for Life education program. We like the Smith family because they actually use our donations very well. They're an organisation which is very targeted, and you feel that your donation is actually going to where it should be. A big shout out to last Sunday's volunteering at the Melbourne Marathon, which was featured in the bulletin this week. Getting up at 4:15 in the northern suburbs to get down to the Bayside was an effort that wasn't too far. We were able to raise more money for the children's scholarships and smashed our target of $2,000. We got $2,870. We get paid for each volunteer, and thanks to a score and more, 41 total of volunteers from the club, giving up their sleep and supplemented by a very large group of Trinity College students for a community support project. And a reminder, I keep waving this around and I've actually got to it now, there are sponsor pledges supporting our Around the Bay riders, and the forms are on your table. For the kids who go for the Learning for Life, it might be a 17-year program, and this makes our support for close to 20 years, estimated $500,000, even more significant. Now to business. A reminder that we are currently calling for nominations to the Board of Directors for appointment from July the 1st, 2026, and elections on the 19th of November 2025 this year. An email was sent to all members last Wednesday. Nominations must be made in writing to the Honorary Secretary Sue Smith by 2:10 p.m. Wednesday the 12th of November. And now to the business of the day. Would our Chairman and Vocational Services Director, Iqbal, come to the stadium to take over the meeting, please? Thank you, Iqbal.
President Philip, our distinguished guests, past recipient of these awards, and of course my fellow Rotarians, it's a real pleasure to welcome you to this special part of our meeting. the presentation of the Rotary Melbourne Vocational Service Award. This award is one of the most significant honours our club bestows. It recognises a resident of Victoria who has not only achieved excellence in the profession, but has also used their vocational skills to make a meaningful and lasting contribution to the community. In selecting a recipient, we look at the type, level and quality of their professional achievements, the impact and duration of their community service through their vocation, and that they are a resident of Victoria. At its core, this award celebrates the importance of vocation in Rotary and how professional life can be a powerful way to serve others. It reflects our shared commitment to service above self. The Vocational Service Award was first proposed in 1963 by Harry Simpson, inspired by a similar initiative in Sydney and Adelaide. The goal was to honour individuals who demonstrate service to the community through their vocation, regardless of fame or public recognition. In 1964, the first award was presented to O.J. Nielsen by Rotary Club of Melbourne, a pioneer of radio in Victoria and a former Lord Mayor of Melbourne. His work shaped both the media landscape and civic life of our society. Then in 1979, our first female recipient, Major Dawn Whale of the Salvation Army, was recognised for her deep commitment to children in residential care. Since then, many distinguished Victorians have received this honour, and today we proudly carry that tradition forward. This year's recipient, Andrew Mahar AM, is a remarkable example of vocational service in action. For over 3 decades, Andrew has worked across Australia and Timor-Leste as a social entrepreneur, creating enterprises that address digital exclusion, environmental sustainability, and social inequality. He has founded and led over 15 social ventures, including Infoxchange Australia, which provides technology access to underserved communities, Info Timor, a computer refurbish and training enterprise in Timor-Leste, and WithOneSeed, a coffee project supporting small farmers, which in turn supports WithOneSeed, a national reforestation initiative. His latest initiative, Rotary, is a Timor-Leste's first certified carbon farming program, creating jobs, restoring land, and tackling the climate crisis. In 2013, Andrew was appointed a member of the Order of Australia for his service to community and technology. He has served as Honorary Counsel for Timor-Leste in Victoria and was recently appointed Special Envoy for Climate Action and Resilience by President Jose Ramos Horta. Andrew's work is ethical, innovative, and deeply community-driven, a true reflection of Rotary's ideal. Andrew Mahar AM truly embodies the spirit of vocational service. He exemplifies how professional life can be used to build a fairer, a more inclusive and sustainable world. We are honoured to recognise him today. Please join me in welcoming the recipient of this year's Rotary Melbourne Vocational Service Award, Andrew Mahar AM. Now I would like to also invite our President Philip to present the plaque to our awardee.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Give him an applause. That's for you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Well done, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Now I'm going to congratulate Andrew, and now I'm going to also invite your friend and East Timor champion, past President Bob Glindemann to the podium to assist your response to the award. Bob?
Thanks, Iqbal. We're going to do this a little differently. Normally the awardee would stand here and worry about having put together 20 minutes to talk to you about his activity, but on this occasion we're going to do it a little differently and we're going to interview him, because there's a lot more to Andrew Mahar than that which many of you know about his activities in Timor. We've got quite a few questions, and how we'll go for time we'll see. So Andrew, congratulations firstly on receiving the award. It's richly deserved, and certainly one that represents the enormous breadth of activity that you've been involved in. A lot of it is associated with social justice. When did your interest start, and what was the driver for this?
Thanks, Bob. Bob. It's working? Okay. Can I just acknowledge the previous recipients of this award? I'm absolutely humbled. You want me to stand up taller? That's why I'm not. I'll speak into it. That's what I should do. So I would just like to acknowledge the previous recipients of this award. I'm absolutely humbled to come today and receive it. And when I hear the citation was read out, I sort of wonder, who are you talking about? Not sure about that sort of thing. I got involved in justice, understanding about justice at a very early age, around about 13 or 14, when I was at one of the elite private schools in Victoria, who had a program of cadets that was compulsory for all the students to participate in. And I was a pacifist, and so I refused to participate in the cadet program and became a conscientious objector for that. And unfortunately the school didn't take kindly to that approach, and I ended up being punished for it. But when my fellow students would march around the oval with their guns and do whatever they would do, I was forced to go to the area of the school where students who were bad had to do detention. And that detention was transcribing directly from Knowledge magazine. And I imagine many of you would know that Knowledge magazine that was way back. And so I was punished to do that. I had to sit there and just write this stuff. And I thought that was unjust, because my pacifism was about my thinking and my understanding of things, and not about doing anything bad. And so that's where I started to get a sense of that. I also have my father to thank for the way I've turned out and who I am. Sadly, he passed away just over 12 months ago. But we'd worked together for 25 years, and he taught me a lot about this. And I hope that, having my children here, that they also will be able to say in future years that I taught them a lot about the importance of justice, about the importance of equality, and looking out for our fellow human beings.
Now, this journey is a fairly long one, and what was your first real venture in social justice?
My first real venture, in a way, or in social justice and social enterprise, was an enterprise that I set up to get myself through university. It wasn't a social enterprise, but it was an enterprise being a fishmonger. I needed to be able to go and pay my way through university, and so I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday morning and go to the Footscray fish market and buy 200 kilo of whatever the cheapest fish was there, and then I would spend the next 4 hours cleaning and gutting, and then I would put it into rubbish bins and put it in the back of one of my mates' cars, and would go and sit outside Swinburne University and sell it to the students. And I was able then to be able to make $500 a day from doing that paid my way through university. It was difficult because I had an Italian class in the middle of the cleaning the fish and the selling of the fish, and the people in the Italian class weren't overly impressed with having someone who stunk of fish coming along and trying to do conversational Italian work. But the first real social justice enterprise was called the Housing Bulletin Board Network, which was a system, electronic system, that got set up to try and improve access to crisis accommodation for homeless people in the inner city area of Melbourne. And that then led on to a whole range of other things.
So obviously technology was a pretty important part of HBBN. Where did your interest in this technology necessarily stem from?
Well, we were just talking about technology over lunch and around typewriters and remembering the old typewriters with a keyboard and things like that, with those keys that would flick up and down and often get stuck. The typewriters that I like using was the old golf ball type typewriter that allowed you to be able to go and also had a self-correcting ribbon so you could correct your mistakes if you knew you'd made the mistakes. That was the challenge. I was at a party in Melbourne and talking to a fellow about the work I'd been doing for 10 years with homeless people and the frustration of those people finding a bed for the night. And it was terribly demoralising and demeaning for people who were homeless to have to sit in the waiting rooms of community organisations. And community organisations do a wonderful job in our society, but they're not good at collaboration and working together terribly much. And so people who were homeless would have to wait until a caseworker told them where the bed was. And I was explaining this to the person at the party, and he suggested, well, why don't you use some technology to be able to set up something whereby the bed vacancies could be registered online and people could get them. The trouble is no one knew what online was back then. It was very new, so we set this bulletin board up that we had to have 35 telephone lines coming into it, and people could then dial in to the system. And it allowed us to then be able to set up the first internet service provider in Australia for not-for-profit organisations. Because we had 35 telephone lines coming in, we were then able to set up and become an internet provider. And that then allowed us to be able to start to generate money from the activities that we're doing. And all of the work I've been doing over those years is about generating money. I mean, the social enterprise is no different than a private business. It's just around where the surpluses or profits end up going.
We've mentioned Infoxchange in the original words that Iqbal used. It's perhaps the largest and best known of your many ventures, at least up to this stage, because you founded it in early 1990. Is it still operating? How did it evolve?
Yeah, Infoxchange is still operating. I set Infoxchange up with a $3,000 grant from the then Labor government back in that time, and I spent 25 years building that. And as I said, I spent those 25 years with my father, and we built a directory of services so that people were able to quickly and easily find out where the services that they wanted are. And we're very fortunate in Australia where government spends money on health and welfare services. But we've got to be better at being able to get people into those health and welfare services and share the information around. And so we set this bed vacancy register up. It's sort of a bit like the first Airbnb. And if I'd been smarter, I could have been much wealthier by now too, if I'd sort of thought about how all of that sort of thing works. Today, Infoxchange is a $34 million a year turnover business, operating in Australia, New Zealand and other countries. And I think the secret to their success was to get rid of the founder and put in someone who knows how to run a business, and they built that and got that going. So it does continue to provide amazing services. And again, I look back on my father's work in that area, that you go back 35 years, and to do something 35 years ago that is still blossoming and going extraordinarily well today is a remarkable achievement, I think.
Now that brings us up to about 2000, 2001, and all of these endeavours are centred around activities in Australia. But soon after, Timor came into the picture. When did your interest in Timor start, and what was the catalyst for that move?
Yeah, well, maybe just before you get there, the 2000, 2001, when the world was going to end because of the Y2K bug, and everyone started getting rid of their computers. And we put up our hands and said, we'll have those. And the then Labor government at the time, Steve Brax's government, introduced a community jobs program where they provided 6 months of money to give long-term unemployed people experience in the workplace. And we applied for that. But our model was a little bit different. We took on people and said, we're taking you on as a job. This is not a work experience where after 6 months you're gone. If we build the business properly, then you can stay on. And we took on those computers. I think we ended up with around about 20,000 computers that we refurbished, and we wired up the public housing estates in Fitzroy and Collingwood and put a computer in every apartment there, with the intention of looking at trying to break the intergenerational unemployment, and particularly focused on young women, and so that they had access to technology to be able to do that. And those were both set up as businesses as well, and we charged $5 a month for the internet for those communities. So that all worked. Steve Brax then went to Timor to open Ballabo House in, I think, about 2002. And went to the Dili Institute of Technology and was surprised to see pigs and other things walking down the corridor, or running down the corridor of his Institute of Technology. And they had computers there that had been donated by well-intentioned people, companies, and I remember I saw these computers that have the ANZ logo on them. And it was well-intentioned people, but none of them worked. And I went there, Steve Brax asked me to go there and have a look and make some suggestions around how the technology could be improved. And I went there, I actually took Jacob, my son, and another colleague, and we went to Timor and had a look. And I pretty well got off the plane and got bitten by the joint. There was just something there that was just so special. It was devastated. The Indonesians had just left 2 years before. But there was something about the people, the resilience of those people. They had nothing, but they had an open heart and a big smile, and that really touched me in that way. And I went, and Jacob and my colleague, we got the technology running in the Dili Institute of Technology. We got it connected to the internet, and I remember it was very slow internet, but I just saw this stuff peeling down the screen with Coca-Cola and things like that, and I'm thinking, really, is this what we want to be doing, and introducing this sort of stuff into this country at this time? But anyway, we got all of that sort of stuff going, and then I said to Jacob and Peter, who went with me, we'll go to Balcao for R&R, you can have some time out. And so we went up to Balcao, not knowing that there was an East Timor roofing company sitting there, and we went and met Norm, who was there, and as soon as people heard that there was someone who knew something about computers, they were onto us. And so we spent the next few days working our bums off, fixing computers and getting things happening in Balcao. And that was, the start of the amazing relationship that we ended up having with the East Timor Roofing Company and Rotary.
Tell us a little bit about that relationship with East Timor Roofing. How did you get involved with that?
I'm not sure, Bob. But it was one of the things that allowed us to be able to build the operation. So when I came back that first time and spoke with Steve Brax about our experience up there, I said it was all fine now, but within 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, when the technology started to fail, there was nobody there with the skills to be able to fix it. And so I said to him, we should bring 6 young people from the Dili Institute out to our workshops in Abbotsford at Green PC and skill them up so that they could then run the technology. That was at the time in 2006 in Dili, when there was the crisis between the east and the west of the country, and it was really traumatising again for the Timorese people. But we brought 6 people out to our workshop for 6 months, and they lived with us in boarding in houses in our friends' places, and they lived the Infoxchange model. And they then wanted to go back and set that up, but they didn't want to go back and set it up in Dili, because that's where the strife was. They wanted to go and set it up in Balcao. And so we then started talking with you guys at the roofing company. You've built this fantastic training centre just across the road, and we managed to convince you that we should be able to go and use some of that training facility to set up a computer training centre in Balcao. And that's that's where the thing started. And obviously the DIK people, Bob, sending container loads of computers and things like that to Timor just made it so much easier for us to be able to do that, because there was already a mechanism, you're already sending a whole lot of other stuff. So we started then to send computers up, and we would send a couple of containers of computers. And these young people that had spent 6 months with us learning the skills were then able to fix them. And they built a business out of that. And the training centre was used as the main place where that operated from.
Now, it's a lot of technology, and we moved from technology into, let me call it agriculture. Let me talk about WithOneSeed. It was a simple concept with big ambitions, and I think the words that you used were simple action, many people, big impact. Tell us a little about this one. What was your vision for the future with WithOneSeed?
Yeah, vision's an interesting word, I reckon. I'm not sure that I am, you know, some people say, oh, you're a visionary with what you do, and I say, no, I just do what I do each day. And it works. The WithOneSeed program came about after, on one of my trips up there, I would go and spend a month or a couple of months, and my dear wife Kathy would be living at home looking after the kids and things like that. So I'm just so appreciative of you, Kathy, and what your contribution to me has been. So thank you. I bought Tim Flannery's book, Now or Never, on one of my travels, and in there was a chapter called Trees for Security, and he was advocating that we should be encouraging subsistence farmers in the Asia Pacific rainforest area to maintain the trees in their areas for two main reasons. One is the trees and the forests is where their livelihoods come from. Timorese people see their forests and they call it their supermarket, because that's where they go to get not only food but medicines and all other sorts of things. And so it was for their livelihoods. And the second reason was that Flannery was arguing the more trees on the planet, the more carbon will be drawn down, the longer humanity might survive. And that sounded like a pretty cool idea, and I went and talked with a couple of the young people who had come out on the computer program and said, you know, what about we go and look at maintaining the forests in Timor? And they said, yeah, come up to Bagia. And I had no idea where Bagia was, but it was about a 9-hour drive for about 120 kilometres. And I went up there and I met this amazing couple, Leo and John Guzman, and we talked about this idea of maintaining the forest. They looked at me and said, it's not maintain the forest here, it's going to be about putting the forest back. The Indonesians dropped napalm bombs and all that sort of stuff during that period of time, things that we don't understand really that happened up in Timor-Leste. We know a lot about what happened at Kokoda and at PNG, but we don't know the sacrifice that Timorese people made to keep the Japanese out of Australia as well. And so I went and visited them, and so rather than the idea of putting the forest back, we came up with this idea of, well, let's pay farmers to put trees back in the ground. And this was quite a revolutionary idea, because there were people who were providing trees, but they were being provided on this basis of saying, be grateful for getting these trees, plant them and look after them, and in some years, sometime down the track, you'll make something out of that. Those programs didn't work. The European Union spent $20 million, US dollars, on planting 5 million trees, and they have no idea at all how many of those trees have survived. And there is no income being generated from those trees for the farmers. So we decided we would look at paying the farmers 50 cents per tree per year they kept the trees alive, and we gave them up to 500 trees, so they were able to earn around $250 a year, and it doesn't sound like much, but that was enough to double their annual income. And so we started doing this, and I managed to convince people at Computershare who put $300,000 on the table to allow us to be able to go and start this program. And they weren't interested in the carbon initially. I said, trees sequester carbon. Do you really know you need to know exactly how much carbon is being sequestered? And I managed to convince them, and maybe because the CEO at the time was an old boy at that school that I went to that I got punished for. But anyway, and so they supported that. But then a few years later, they said, we need to know how much carbon is there. And I said, the only way we can do that is if we get ourselves internationally certified. And that international certification process is a whopper. It is really big issue to go through in a place, particularly in a place like Timor, to try and get certified for what we are doing and being able to calculate the amount of carbon. But we went through that process and got that done, and today that program is in the top 2% of carbon drawdown programs globally, recognised, and it's also a gold standard certified, which is the premium or the premier certification process. And we're able now to sell carbon credits on the spot market for $90, making them the most expensive carbon credits you can buy in the world. And we have contracts for those carbon credits out till 2035 from other companies around the world. We've managed to be able to put $6 million into the Begia community, which is a huge amount of money, into there. They've been able to build some schools, fix roads. When the cyclone went through there, we were able to put $200,000 in there just quickly to give every household a sack of rice. And so, you know, that program has been an amazing way of being able to build village-based economies and give people the power to make decisions for themselves by putting an earned dollar in their pockets. And it's all about being beyond charity and aid. Charity and aid, it's really useful, but it shouldn't be a lifestyle for people.
You've stolen our thunder.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's perfectly all right. You're going to hear a lot more about this reforestation program in Timor on the 5th of November, because Rotary Melbourne is looking to joint venture effectively with Expand Foundation, which is the organisation largely associated with the trees. And once that whole program is, what do we say, sorted, we know it works. You've just heard from Andrew how effective it is. This club will be making a significant involvement with Expand to grow it even further. But we're going to talk more about that on the 5th of November when we'll really get into the nitty-gritty. There's some great videos to look at about the whole process. Andrew, congratulations on the award. Thank you for talking to us about the many things that you've done. And when you think about the enterprise that is still going, started so long ago from the basis of a golf ball typewriter, it's not a bad effort, is it? Well done, Andrew. Now, Iqbal, we hand back to you to finalise the meeting.
Thank you, Bob, and many congratulations again, Andrew, on your award. Well done. You really deserve that award. Now, I was thinking perhaps anyone have any questions? I think maybe one or two questions if you can take. Anyone from the floor, or would you like to raise your hand and ask any question?
Andrew, we know that East Timor's population, about 60%, if not more, are under 30. I'm wondering if you can just give us a small snapshot of what difference the programs you've done have been in terms of education, where kids can struggle to get to school in the wet season, and where hunger is such a critical issue that needs discussion. So how this program of trees is about way more than trees, and how the program with the computers was about way more than computers.
Yeah, I think it's true. All of this work, the trees and the carbon is just the mechanism to be able to put some money into those communities for people to be able to make decisions for themselves and not be reliant on the charity and aid, which I say is very important, but it shouldn't be something. I think that the development industry is broken, and it is an industry, and I think that we need to be having a look at that. The issue with the children and the young people in particular, it is a very young country, and they've got to be given opportunities in the same way that we need to give opportunities to our young people to be able to feel valued and worthwhile. one of the things when I go up there, we have lots of meetings, because my model is I go there, we talk, I leave, they do. And it's not about me as a white person going in and telling people how to do things. We have those conversations and they work it out. And then I go back and I sort of scratch my head and say, wow, you've done it. Not really sure I would have done it that way, but that doesn't really matter. They did it and they got it together. And so in the forestry program there now, there's about 150 people employed that weren't employed before up in the mountains. And they are so proud of the fact that they're employed in that, and that then extends into their families. And the Timorese family is around about 6 kids per household, so it's a lot of young people. The computer program as well was about training and providing skills so that they could then go and get jobs. So the people who go and do the computer training then can go and get jobs in the admin area of these other enterprises that are being established. And there is, I think my experience of Timor and my experience of Australia is there are so many similarities, but I'm not really quite sure how to put it, but there are so many similarities that are at either end of the spectrum. So you talk about the malnutrition and things that create stunting and things. We have the problem in this country about obesity. So the food issues and things are very similar. We have a similar thing in Australia with the deforestation and the clearing of the land, and it was done back when the soldier settlers came back and they were required to clear land. And if they didn't clear the land was taken back from them. So we now have a problem with cleared land that, you know, there's a lot of work now doing, and I'm involved in some of that, of putting trees back on farms and things. So in Timor, the trees disappeared as well. So we've got to look at being able to put the trees back and improve the environment. And we're all struggling, and I know that it's in some ways still, unfortunately, a controversial issue, but we are all struggling with climate change. And we need to be doing things, and one of the drivers of the work in Timor is to ensure that those communities are able to support themselves, and that we don't end up having mass migration of people from the islands coming to Australia because there is nothing for them to do in those countries. And we need to be building examples of this, and I'm absolutely delighted with Bob and the work that you're doing around the forestry stuff and supporting that sort of work. If I can put in another plug, you could also help us with, we run a coffee business called Timor Coffee Roasters, and we bring 20 tonnes of coffee from Timor each year, and we roast that out in Oakley at our roastery. And for every kilo of coffee that we sell, we plant a tree. And so partly you can get a win-win with that. You can get your coffee hit in the morning and know that you're planting a tree to keep people surviving. Sorry, I'll cut it out. Yeah, thank you. I got into plugging too much.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you, Andrew. You've been really an inspiration. I think we're just running a bit of a time here, so I just want to say thank you to our visitors and guests for attending, and also thank you to our MC, Rosemary Nixon, and for the reflection, Peter Dakin, and our lunch setup and reception teams for their efforts. A reminder, next week we meet here again for lunch, and our guest speaker will be Sonia Winyavich, GM and State Director, Settlement Services International. We hope you can join us.